going on, PFR Nation? This is Kevin Lau, your host of the Planning for Retirement podcast, and welcome to another edition of the Whiteboard Fireside Chats. And today we're doing another video, and the topic for the week is annuities. And I hope you all enjoyed the podcast episode this week with Tracy and Cheryl. Thank y'all so much for joining as guests. You guys are a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with PFR Nation, our listeners. And I did a fireside chat earlier in the week, and it was about systematic withdrawals versus the SPIA, or the single premium immediate annuity. And we talked about how ultimately a lot of people think that annuities are going to hurt their performance in retirement, not help their performance in retirement. And what we saw with the payout rates, it's very unlikely that you're going to go into retirement with the systematic withdrawal that will exceed what a payout rate might be. In that case, I think it was in the neighborhood of around 6.9% was the payout rate for that 60-year-old male. And so we already debunked that myth. And today I'm also going to be debunking this myth that legacy is going to be impacted negatively if you choose to annuitize some of your assets. And I'm here to tell you that is potentially going to be false. Now, there are obviously a lot of variables. There are a lot of caveats that are in play here. But in general, most people think that if you annuitize some of your assets that are no longer on your balance sheet, that is going to hurt your financial legacy. Okay, so we're going to go through an actual example of one of my clients that I ran some testing on in our models, and spoiler alert, it's not true. Okay, so first and foremost, I guess a disclosure before we jump in, and I already did this disclosure on the last video. I do not sell annuities. Okay, I'm not licensed to sell insurance products at all. I launched a fee-only firm in 2020, so I was forced to drop all my insurance licenses in order to serve in a fiduciary capacity at all times. That was very important to me. But from 2008 to 2020, I was licensed to sell insurance products, and I understand the value where these insurance products can fit in an overall retirement income plan. Okay, and there are many individuals out there, advisors, clients even, financial influencers that are very negative on annuities. And that's why I wanted to do this series this week, to try to debunk these myths and try to help people understand where they may fit, why they may fit, and don't feel badly if you purchase one. I think a lot of people are going to guilt you into thinking that you're an idiot because Susie Orman said annuities are bad. And so if you purchase an annuity, you're afraid to tell your family and friends. It's just ridiculous. All right. And so why don't we dive into the whiteboard here, and we're gonna debunk this myth of impacting legacy. All right. So here's the example of this client that I mentioned. Their ages 62 and 63. They've accumulated a nice little nest egg, and they're planning to retire really at any point in time. It could be in 2025. It might be in 2026, but they saved up about $2.8 million. A large majority of that is inside of his traditional IRA, okay, which is tax deferred, so $1.7 million. This is very common for PFR Nation that started out really saving without Roth accounts for many years, sometimes decades. And so now Roth accounts are becoming mainstream, but many of you are really high income earners at this point in time. So it may not make sense for you to pay the taxes now, contribute to the Roth. It might make sense for you to take a tax deduction, reduce your marginal rate today, and ultimately look at doing those distributions when your taxable income goes down. Okay, now I know there's a lot of people out there that are going to start yelling and saying, well, tax rates are guaranteed to go up. Look at the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. That's going to be sunsetting in 2026. I've been saying that for many years, and I don't disagree. But what I'm saying now, after looking into the policies of Kamala Harris as well as former President Trump, it's very likely, in my opinion, that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, at least in some form, they're going to be extended beyond 2025. You heard it here first. That is my bold prediction. Come 2026, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act brackets will continue. And then depending on who's in office, there are going to be some other tax policy changes down the pipeline. Okay. And so, spoiler alert. So kind of stay tuned on this one. The next podcast episode I'm going to be releasing is on Trump and Harris's tax policies and how they differ, and my interpretation of how they would impact you, PFR Nation, in your journey planning for retirement. But then I digress. So we've got the brokerage account of about $690, and then this annuity down here that they have on their balance sheet of about $380,000. Right now, it's crediting interest somewhere in the neighborhood of around 5% a year, which is great. Even a little bit more than a risk-free bond, if you will. So there's value there, okay, as a bond alternative in the accumulation phase, in my opinion. Okay, but really what I wanted to stress test here was, well, what if they took roughly $400,000 off their balance sheet? They said, you know what, let's remove this from our balance sheet at retirement and let's turn this in to a life income. Essentially, they annuitized. Okay, and I looked at the fact sheet that we received from the insurance company. The annuitized amount at that point in time, assuming they retired in 2026, this was that assumption, was around $400,000. So it would compound at 5% roughly over the next couple of years. So they'd roughly have $400,000, and the annual income payment from that is about $29,000 and some change. We'll call it $29K. If you divide $29K into $400,000, the payout rate that I received, or that I quoted on my little Excel calculator there, was about 7.32% is the payout rate. Now I'm going to ask you, DIY investors alike, what is the likelihood of you withdrawing 7.32% of your portfolio going for at the beginning of retirement and really staying at 7.3% indefinitely for the next 10, 15, 20 years? I'm going to say very low likelihood. And I know this because I've reviewed DIY investors in terms of their retirement income plans, and it's inevitable. Most of you are underspending in retirement, and I get it. You need to be cautious. You need to be very careful. You can't make any big mistakes. At the end of the day, the buck stops with you. If you fail your family for your retirement income plan, it's all on you. You are the one pushing the buttons behind the scenes. So I get it. Many of you are worried. Many of you are concerned about outliving your assets. Okay. And that's why I'm doing this little fireside chat, because most of you are biased against annuities. And I just want to ask you, how many of you are going to take 7.32% out of your portfolio? And I already know the answer. Not many of you, really, if at all. Okay. I'm going to guess, and I would drop a comment. If you are withdrawing more than 7.32% of your portfolio on your own, I would love to hear from you. And if you're not withdrawing 7.32%, drop a comment. How much are you withdrawing from your portfolio? Or how much do you plan to withdraw as a starting rate in that first year of retirement? But right away, you sort of see this dilemma here. Is we've got this annuity that's generating an interest rate of roughly 5% a year. You could take systematic withdrawals and leave that $400,000 liquid, or you could get rid of that annuity, annuitize it, and now we've had that life income of $29,000 for the rest of your life, which is a payout rate of 7.32%. So again, most people assume if you're going to take $400,000 liquid out of your balance sheet, of course you're going to leave a smaller legacy at the end of your life. Let's go to my Monte Carlo simulation. On the left-hand side, we have no annuitization. And on the right side, we have annuitization. Look what wins. We've got a probability of success goes up. So they were 84% funded. Probability of success goes up to 85%, which may not seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal. I'm telling you that. Okay. Any percentage points in the Monte Carlo, because of how hard this test is to pass, it's very difficult to get a 100% score. Each percentage point means something. It means you're eliminating a potential scenario where you outlived your assets. Okay. And then in the ending legacy, look at this. This is what I want to point out. 4.279. $4,279,000 is the ending projected legacy amount, assuming they both lived until age 90, versus if they did not annuitize, $4,193,000. That's a delta of adding an additional $86,000 of legacy. And oh, by the way, most likely you withdrew from that portfolio in a far in excess what you otherwise would have if you were focusing on systematic withdrawals alone. This is exactly why I wanted to do this video, because I've seen these models run in the past. I've seen the value of not only allowing a retiree to free up their spending with an easy button, but also to impact how much they're leaving as a financial legacy to the next generation. Now, obviously, there are many other things at play here. We're talking, the risk tolerance of this investor, the time horizon of this investor, what other income sources there are. So it's never a one size fits all, but absolutely for this particular client, when he does retire fully, whether it's in 2025 or 2026, my recommendation is going to be to take that $403,000 annuity that he already owns and turn that into a life income stream that is guaranteed to never outlive, as well as protect his spouse if she outlives him. And ultimately, that is going to give them the best bang for the buck on that particular asset class. Okay. So why does that happen? Okay. Really, the best way, the way I would explain it is this client would rely on their portfolio for $30,000 less, because that annuitization amount, we said it was about 29,000 and some change. So relying on their portfolio, their systematic withdrawals, at less than $30,000 than they otherwise would have if they had not annuitized it, and ultimately allowing those assets that are now still liquid on the balance sheet, which is, again, remember, instead of, roughly $2.8 million, they annuitized 400,000. So let's call it 2.4 million is left over on the balance sheet. Okay. They're going to be afforded to take on a little bit more risk with those assets. And those assets, because we're not going to be relying on those for income as much as otherwise they would have, now those assets can be a little bit more aggressive, stay invested in a healthy mix of stocks and potentially bonds to offset some volatility, and therefore had the opportunity to recover at a faster rate if they were relative to if they were just taking systematic withdrawals from that portfolio. So that's at its core, the why around this is that, ultimately you're going to be relying on systematic withdrawals less, and you never in a million years, most likely with that $400,000, would have withdrew a 7.32% payout rate. I'm just telling you. Okay, I don't want to belabor the point there, but that's the why. And I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope you guys found this entire series to be valuable. And if you're liking what's going on, if you're liking the content, make sure to like this video. Make sure to share this video with someone else that might find value in it. And make sure to subscribe to the channel if, again, you are finding value in our content. And again, I appreciate all of you, PFR Nation. It's been a great week. Currently, when this video is being posted, I will be on my golf trip to Macklemore Club. So wish me luck on that one. We've got a little 2v2 matchup, East Coast versus West Coast. So we've got two West Coasters coming into town. I'm going to try to defend our territory here and take them down, so to speak. So wish me luck on that one. I'll report back next week to how that went. And also a review of the new course they have there. It's called The Keep. So I'm really looking forward to that. The views look amazing on the top of Lookout Mountain. So I'm super, super excited. But in the meantime, I hope all of you have a great rest of your weekend and be safe. And until next time, PFR Nation, this is Kevin Lau signing off.